as we look at the word bank over here that summarizes our study of national and regional growth, and it leads us towards manifest destiny. We started this in class, and I just wanted to go through it with you, make sure you understood what goes where and why that's the case. All right. So in class, we decided the cotton gin was an invention, and it was one of those major inventions that made a turning point in American history. We also found over here the Louisiana Purchase contributed to getting more land in the 1800s. So there you go. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is try and go with Jacksonian democracy. And if you remember, President Jackson was the common man president, and he is the one that was thought of as expanding democracy, because during the time that he was president, more people could vote. And he also was somebody that believed in a system where you hire supporters. So if you remember that from your test, you will know that the spoils system So if you remember that from your test, let's click on spoils system. This is Politics of the People, and this is the article that we read when we were looking at Andrew Jackson. And I'm just going to pull it back open just to remind myself what these things are. If you look in the center here, Jacksonian democracy. So let's just skim over it real quick. Jackson believed that he represented the common people. He believed Adams represented the rich Easterners. This division created another two-party system, and it goes in and it talks about how the Republican Party split, and you had, at the end, the Republicans became known as National Republicans. And Jackson promised to look out for the interests of the common people and to promote the idea of majority rule. This idea became known as Jacksonian democracy. In the early 1800s, laws were passed that allowed more people to vote. The expansion of voting rights helped Jackson win the election by a landslide. His election was looked at as a victory for common people. Okay, so if we go back over here to our list, and we find faith in the common man, we heard that. That was in there. So I'm going to copy that and come over here to Jacksonian democracy and paste. And now you not only have the answer, Jacksonian democracy included faith in the common man, but you also have the link over here as well. All right, looking back though, you know there's two things for Jacksonian democracy. So let's look back over here and let's see what else they talk about it. The people's president, Jackson takes office. These are the ones we have left. Spoils system, interchangeable parts, factory system, religious spirituals, Nat Turner's rebellion, American system, Missouri Compromise, Cotton Boom, Improved Transportation, Indian Removal Act, and Indian Territory established. So looking at our paper, we see that the spoils system is actually something on here. And the spoils system, what that meant was giving many government jobs to your supporters. So now we know that we can come over here and we can copy that and paste that into our other Jacksonian democracy bubble. Okay, nationalism and sectionalism is something that we have not studied a lot. And then you see nationalism and sectionalism is the title of this paper. So I'm going to open that up. All right. Now, these are all things that I have highlighted, and that's why it's got all these comments over here. But I wanted to highlight on here for you, since we hadn't done it, some of the main ideas. So if you look over here, it says, in the early 1800s, a sense of nationalism pulled people in different regions of the United States together. Nationalism is a feeling of pride, loyalty, and protectiveness toward a country. Congressman Henry Clay, a strong nationalist, called for the strengthening of the country in its unifying regions. His plan, the American system, included three parts. Set up a protective tariff, a tax on foreign goods, set up a national bank with a single currency, and improve the country's transportation systems. Okay? And now let's look at the spirit of national unity. As nationalism increased, people became more loyal to the federal government, meaning they thought of themselves as Americans first. Okay. Feelings of nationalism, and I've gone down here, also made U.S. leaders want to extend the country's borders. This is why this matters. National and regional growth. We grew as Americans. We grew as an identity of a standpoint of having an American identity. We're going to start to physically grow because we're feeling proud of ourselves. So, looking at the bottom section, it says that it made U.S. leaders want to extend the country's borders. National tensions increase. How did sectionalism help divide the country? Although nationalism helped to unite the country, sectionalism was dividing it. Sectionalism is loyalty to the interests of your own region rather than the nation as a whole. The interests of the North, South, and West were often in conflict. Sectionalism became a major issue when Missouri applied for statehood in 1818. People in Missouri wanted slavery to be allowed there, but this would change the balance of 11 slave states and 11 free states. Henry Clay, the Speaker of the House, suggested that Missouri be admitted as a slave state and Maine as a free state. His plan was known as the Missouri Compromise. It kept the balance of power. The nation felt threatened for other reasons. Some European countries planned to help Spain and Portugal take back American colonies that had broken away. Also, Russian settlements reached out from Alaska almost to San Francisco. In 1823, President Monroe issued the Monroe Doctrine. This was a warning to European countries. Do not set up any more colonies in America. And so that, again, is a feeling of nationalism. All right, so going back to our work here. The American system was that system that Henry Clay had said he wanted for America, and it was to tax foreign goods and set up a national bank and improve the country's transportation. All of that right there is part of the American system, which goes under the heading Nationalism Unites the Country. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste that in one of the nationalism. And we read about the Missouri Compromise. Looking back, the Missouri Compromise is right here. Agreement that temporarily settled the issue of slavery in the territories. If it's an issue, it's dividing something. And if your nation is divided, they called it sectionalism. So let's go down here. Nationalism helped to unite the country. Sectionalism was dividing it. Sectionalism is loyalty to the interests of your own region rather than the nation as a whole. The Missouri, and then it starts to talk about Missouri and Missouri Compromise. So that is the one that you will put over here in the nationalism and sectionalism part. Okay. Inventions. If you just think about it, what else in here is an invention? Early industry. Okay. So we've got inventions and industry kind of close together over here. So this might be some of what we're looking at. And interchangeable parts. So it looks like this particular article was very helpful to us. Let's just find some of these key terms. So the factory system here is a system that brought many workers and machines together under one roof. And then if you come back over here, you see a list of inventions. And one of those, interchangeable parts, is actually one of our choices. So let's go ahead and put that over there with inventions. So if the inventions are finished, then we need to look at things that deal with industry, and you have slavery. So if you look on this thing, just kind of think about this. Slavery is in the center, and it is almost causing a divide. The South has plantation agriculture as their economic foundation, and industry, or making finished products in factories, is more in the North. So if we go over here to factory system, let's see what that says. So we said it said a system that brought many workers and machines together under one roof. Okay. But in the Industrial Revolution is when factory machines replaced hand tools. So that's the difference between trying to build a house with a hammer versus a nail gun today. Or having that extra power of the machine has definitely changed how we live in the nation. So I'm going to look right under here. The factory system brought many workers and machines together under one roof. Most factories were built near water to power the machines. People left farms and moved where the factories were. Many people did not want the United States to industrialize. However, during the War of 1812, the British blockade kept imported goods from reaching the United States, so Americans had to start manufacturing their own goods. America began to build its own factories, starting in New England. This region proved a good place for factories. It had many rivers to provide water, and it had ships and access to the ocean. In addition, they had willing workers who were not able to make a living by farming. So, New England, if you remember when we talked about the colonies, was the northern part of the country. And grab factory system. Paste that in there. Let's just go back to that article and see if there's anything else in there. We saw interchangeable parts. We've used that already. A new way to manufacture. You see Eli Whitney, interchangeable parts. And I am skimming this because we did this assignment already. Moving people, goods, and messages. How did inventions change transportation and communication in the United States? New inventions improved transportation and communication. Robert Fulton invented a steamboat that could move against the current or strong wind. In 1807, he launched the Clermont in the Hudson River. In 1816, Henry Miller Shreve, a trader on the Mississippi River, designed a more powerful steam engine. It ran a double-decker boat with a paddle wheel in the back. Shreve sailed the boat up the Mississippi and started a new era of trade and transportation. Okay, so these inventions here are about moving and how that changed the United States. So if you look over here, improved transportation. Improved transportation helped everybody. It also made it easier for people to trade. Religious spirituals is talking about plantations and slavery spread. So you're probably going to be over in here. And here you've got one that says the cotton boom also. Okay. So Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin in 1793. This invention made cotton cleaning process much easier and quicker. It allowed one worker to clean as much as 50 pounds of cotton a day. The cotton gin changed Southern life in 4 ways. Okay. Cotton farming moved westward beyond the Atlantic coastal states. Because cotton was such a valuable crop, planters put most of their efforts into growing it. More Native American groups were driven off southern land, and slavery continued to be an important source for growing cotton. So, where would that go? Cotton production rose greatly between 1790 and 1860. So did the number of enslaved people in the South. As earnings from cotton rose, so did the price of slaves. Slavery divided white Southerners into those who held slaves and those who did not. Of the slaveholding families, only 1/10 had large enough plantations with 20 or more slaves. Although most white Southern farmers owned few or no slaves, many supported slavery anyway. So you see the expansion of slavery. And then you'll see the word spirituals. Enslaved people expressed their religious beliefs using spirituals or religious folk songs. And then you'll see Nat Turner's rebellion. Several armed rebellions took place. Most famous was the Nat Turner Rebellion, and Turner and 70 different followers of his killed 55 white men, women, and children, and most of them were either killed or hanged. But this creates fear in the South, and so what ends up happening is a retaliation killing of more than 200 African Americans, and then the states pass laws that kept free blacks and slaves from buying weapons or liquor, and they could not hold religious services unless whites were present, and tensions over slavery increased. So what are the characteristics of slavery in America? And if you are back over here, you can see that Nat Turner's rebellion changed the way that slavery was seen in America, and that the laws became more strict regarding free and enslaved people. And religious spirituals were part of slave life and a way for people to express their hopes and dreams. Okay. Now, plantation agriculture spreads in the South. And how does it spread in the South? Because we passed the Removal Act to gain lands, and then we established plantations by moving the natives. And because the plantations are spreading, cotton is booming, which just means economically it is doing very well. And improved transportation. If that's the case, industry growing is a big deal. First of all, improving your transportation is industry, but it also makes it so that you can get your goods to market and so forth. So these are all of the different ways that our country grew. And our country grew in size. Our country grew in our way of living. And so here, if you look, all of these answers are in here. More labor needed, the nationalism is here, technology, and then you'll see on this one fur trapping, natural resources, and then as we move, set up homesteads, we see a need for land and to remove and relocate them. The Indian Removal Act is passed. So that's why that one goes there. All right, guys.